For regular videos on ancient cultures and forgotten civilizations, please subscribe. Amarna, Egypt. Its remains survive as a testament to the reign of one of Egypt's most extraordinary pharaohs, Akhenaten, who reigned more than 3,000 years ago. He had built at the site huge open-air temples, palaces, and a new royal burial ground, all dedicated to the sun god Aten. We had the privilege of visiting the site of Amarna, and you can too. And right now, we will show you some of the amazing ruins we saw at the site. We hope they wow you as much as they wowed us. Welcome to the Antiquities Travel Guide, a helping hand for visiting historic places. Follow us to different countries as we search for ancient artifacts. If you too wish to explore the ancient past through travel, we'll help you plan where to go, what to see, and how best to enjoy what you encounter. In this series of the ATG, you can accompany Natalie and me on our trek through Egypt, homeland of the ancient Egyptians, Cushites, Libyans, Asiatics, and Greeks. Come on, let's go. Leaving our hotel in the city of Minya in central Egypt, I and my colleague in history, Natalie, boarded a private van with our guide Ehab and our driver Mohammed to make our way to an ancient site I've been wanting to visit for years.
It's not often that you can find an untouched ancient city from one particular time period, because usually cities are occupied for many centuries, and sometimes even have ancient cities that are underneath modern cities. That's how long they've been there. But with the city of Akhetaten, okay, it was inhabited only during a short period of time in Egypt's history. So we have like a snapshot view of what it was like at a particular time in Egypt. And that's why I'm so excited to go there and check it out.
When traveling Egypt, Americans will often receive an armed escort from the tourism police. They say it's for our protection, but I expect they also want to make sure we don't go anywhere we're not supposed to. On this day, one of the officers even rode in the van with us. You may have heard of Akhenaten before. He is often reputed to be the world's earliest documented monotheist. Some question whether he truly believed in only one god, but the little evidence that we have seems to indicate that he did. Even to himself he did not ascribe divinity, as past kings had, but he saw himself as the mediator between the Aten and the people. Egypt had more than one sun god. The Aten was always represented as the circle or disk of the sun. Akhenaten didn't want this god portrayed in any other way. The archaeological site of Amarna is on the east bank of the Nile. We took a van, but chartered buses come here as well. There are 3 entrances, one in the south, one in the west, and one in the north, which is what we used. The site is open from 8 to 4 every day and costs 60 Egyptian pounds, that's $2 US, to get in. The site doesn't get many visitors, especially foreign ones, so the staff were very happy to see us. This is a place worth supporting. For the uninformed visitor, finding the best places to see in Amarna is a challenge. It is best to have someone with you who knows where they're going. Ehab, by the way, is an excellent guide, and I highly recommend him to show you around if you ever come to Egypt. His contact info is below the video. The site is huge, so you will need a vehicle to get around in it. Bring some good walking shoes, a hat, and a flashlight. If you have impaired mobility, this will be a difficult visit for you, as there is very little accessibility infrastructure. In the 5th year of his reign, Akhenaten announced his intention to create a new arena devoted to the worship of the Aten, settling on the place known today as Amarna. But Akhenaten called it Akhetaten, which means horizon of the Aten. Not long after building started, he decided to move the entire royal court here. Did he do this for entirely religious reasons, for convenience, or to forward some political agenda? Probably a mixture of the 3, but whatever the case, it was a deliberate push against the status quo and a way of escaping the influence of the powerful priesthood of Amun at Waset, Thebes. Although there were some villages in the vicinity of Amarna, most of it was unoccupied. And as you can see, there isn't much left here anymore. But at one time, this was filled with buildings and bustling with people. We can get some information about some of Akhenaten's first activities here at the site from a series of boundary stelas that he set up around the perimeter, marking out the area that he planned for his city. Akhenaten probably laid out the royal road first and placed some key buildings in the landscape, which he names in the boundary stelas: temples to the Aten, cult buildings for the royal women, a new royal burial ground, and a tomb for the sacred bull Merwer, aka Menevis, worshipped at Iunu, Heliopolis. By the way, the bull tomb has never been found. And if you are wondering why he supported the bull cult if he only worshipped the sun disk, well, Merwer was associated with the sun. Wooden buildings and residences began to appear along the road, forming the core of the city. But the city grew quickly, and before long the wooden structures were transformed into stone and mud brick. People flooded in. Many probably came from Waset, the old capital, to remain close to the king, as their businesses may have relied on the presence of the royal court. As a major city, it would have attracted a bunch of new people, too. Boundary Stela U is one of 16 boundary stelas set up by Akhenaten, and the largest.
We are at Tel El Amarna, which is Akhenaten's new 18th dynasty capital, situated almost exactly between Memphis and Thebes. So Akhenaten actually didn't call this place a city. He called it the dwelling of Aten, saying that the singular god Aten actually commanded him to build this place on virgin soil. And his worship of the Aten in sort of a monotheistic way is what resulted in him being called the Heretic king. We can also see evidence of this new religion throughout this region, just in terms of the solar iconography that you see on the walls everywhere. And the boundary stela U, which is the largest stela attributed to Akhenaten, you can see it right here behind me. It stands at over 25 feet. Akhenaten's vision was actually inscribed all over it. It's really, really interesting. And it's located to the entrance of the canyon, which basically ushers us into Akhenaten's tomb.
one of the highlights of the site of ancient Akhetaten is the royal tomb, which lies off the main valley in a side valley. Sadly, right after the tomb was discovered in the late 19th century, it was heavily looted. But some archaeological treasures survived and can be found in museums around the world. Imagine what a radical move it was to relocate the royal burial ground to this place from the Valley of the Kings. The first corridor running off the main passageway leads to an unfinished suite of rooms. It is generally thought that it was meant for Akhenaten's wife, Queen Nefertiti. But as it was never finished, she probably was never buried here.
So you can see a tunnel here in the process of being hollowed out. Incomplete. Wow. Interesting that they dug up all here first before they
and
did
then
the
you
bottom.
go down, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's more easy.
It's easier
You
that way.
get it from the ceiling to the floor.
Uh-huh.
And then I cut this, it will be more easy.
Wow. Royal tomb.
No, we just found artwork.
The next set of rooms leading off the main passage appears to have been finished, and indications are that it belonged to Akhenaten's and Nefertiti's daughter, the princess Akhetaten. A piece of a sarcophagus bearing her name was found here. But also, some burial equipment of Akhenaten's mother, Tia, was found here. So, was she here too? In the first chamber on the right wall, you can see the remains of a relief showing the king, queen, and princesses in a temple, worshipping the Aten as it rises in the east. On the left wall, they worship the Aten as it sets in the west. All around are soldiers, chariots, attendants, and foreigners raising their arms in adoration of the Aten.
Look at me and point at it.
But most interestingly, on the wall next to the entrance doorway, there are two registers showing a funeral. You can see on the bottom register, the king and queen are weeping over the dead body of a girl, probably the princess Akhetaten.
She's dead when she's died. And
carrying
this is
the
the
dead
one she used to take care of the baby, the maid.
Uh-huh.
And here, if you look in the top of the head, you're doing like so.
It's like a wailing or...
This, in the ancient time, it used to be when someone died, like...
Oh, it's part,
my God,
it's part of the, wailing for the...
Yeah.
You don't normally see emotional scenes like this in kings' tombs, but Akhenaten was different. Chamber 2 has no art, but Chamber 3 shows more scenes mourning the princess, though they are poorly preserved. We then made our way to Akhenaten's burial chamber.
This here was a trap. So if you're coming along this way, right, and you come down those stairs, they're actually original stairs under the old stairs, or under the new stairs, but they come in here. This probably would have been covered with something, and then you walk on it and boom! You can't get any further because you're down in the...
Right now there is a modern raised floor in the room. Maybe you can see the plinth in the middle of the room. This is where the sarcophagus sat. Pieces of it were found, as well as a canopic chest and 200 shabtis, funerary figurines. Very little of the artwork survives. The clearest scene is of Akhenaten and Nefertiti worshipping the Aten, which is on the left as you enter the chamber.
I think scholars are still trying to figure out why the artwork is so different during this time.
We headed back the way we came to see the North Tombs, one of the highlights of Amarna. Notice how prominently they are placed, where people can look up from the city and see them. Natalie wasn't feeling too well, so Ehab and I hiked up there with the guards ourselves. These are tombs of the high officials of Akhenaten's court, and inside them you can see much of the visual and written evidence that has helped historians understand the reign of Akhenaten. Unfortunately, when the city was abandoned, the officials who had their tombs built here decided to be buried elsewhere. So these tombs lay abandoned. Later, a Christian monastic community used them as dwellings. The first tomb we explored was that of Mary Ray, the most senior Aten priest at Akhetaten, fan-bearer on the right hand of the king. His tomb is one of the most impressive here. Mary Ray and his wife are at the doorway worshipping the sun. She has a perfume cone on her head.
Isn't that amazing? Look at that. It's, oh man. Fantastic.
The scene shows Akhenaten and Nefertiti each in a chariot, making a royal visit to the central city of Akhetaten, the sun above their heads, and a procession accompanying them. The tomb contains scenes of the Great Aten Temple, which are rather detailed and help us to understand how it looked and how it functioned.
You can see the prominence of Aten here. The sun is all over the place.
The work on the inner wall was never finished, and same with the shrine.
I don't know, it was prepared for him. I don't know if he ever got put in here. But this whole section is unfinished. That's why it's so rough.
Was somebody buried in here?
What happened was Christians came here later and lived in here.
Oh, wow.
But the area shows how the stonecutters worked. They would remove stone in blocks, which suggests that they were planning to use those blocks elsewhere. Mohammed, our driver, and Natalie were following us in the van. The chief servitor of the Aten in the Great Aten Temple was a man named Panehesy. He also held the titles of second prophet of the Lord of the Two Lands, Akhenaten, and overseer of the cattle. 2 houses owned by this man also were found here, one near the temple and one in the main city.
Check out this palmetto pillar. You still can see the paint on it. These were brightly colored at one time.
You can see the royal family worshipping the Aten in different settings, as well as Panehesy kneeling before the names of the Aten, Akhenaten, and Nefertiti.
Oh, I guess this was where the tomb was, the burial chamber.
Christians came here during the 6th and 7th centuries and turned this tomb into a church.
When the Christians came here later, they added this. This is a baptismal pool.
You can see Christian paintings above the pool. Ruined buildings outside the tomb date to the same time. Showing some good old-fashioned hospitality, the guardians of the site invited us to come over to the rest house near the ticket office to have lunch with them. They cooked the meal for us from foods they grow right here in the area.
So this is black honey. These are cheeses made right here. And this is called zebda. It's a kind of butter, I guess, a spread. And look at these pies and the bread, which is called marahra or something like that. What do you call that again?
Marahra.
Marahra. Baladi?
Fatir baladi.
Fatir baladi.
Yeah. That's it. Beautiful.
The meal was absolutely delicious.
You have to
I took a huge chunk.
bread, yeah. It's okay.
What about this over here? Is that other
Yeah.
cheese? Yeah.
Same.
Amarna today is home to thousands of people, both Christians and Muslims. There are 3 towns on the site. We don't know how long these towns have been here, but they go way back. Many of the people here work in agriculture. The towns are made up of a handful of extended families, so the community is very tight-knit. and some of them have had a long history of protecting the site and working with the archaeologists. On the way to the south tombs, you can stop to check out the Small Aten Temple. There isn't much of it left, as you can see. Actually, there isn't much left of the city in general. It's the tombs that generally are the highlights here. The purpose of the Small Aten Temple is not known for sure, but it is usually assumed that this was where the king worshipped the Aten privately. His residence was right next door. Nevertheless, it has also been suggested that it was a mortuary temple for the king. The entrance once had flagpoles. In the center there you can see the remains of an altar. Scenes in the tombs show altars like this piled with offerings for the Aten. I'm entering the next court of the temple. These are the remains of the gate. These are the remains of the sanctuary, a small open-air building that was surrounded by gardens. There once were statues of colored stones here, and walls decorated with painted scenes. When you look up at the columns, it gives you an idea of the height of the temple.
The precision on here is amazing. There's no way that the ancient Egyptians could have made it. Oh, it's fake.
Behind and to the left of the temple was the administrative headquarters of Akhetaten. And within the remains of one of the buildings, the records office, archaeologists found one of the greatest legacies of the ancient world. Around 400 clay tablets, written in Akkadian in cuneiform script. These tablets, which we call the Amarna letters, were correspondences from kings of other countries: Babylon, the Hittite Empire, Mitanni, Assyria, and others. These have shed considerable light not only on the foreign relations of Akhenaten's reign, but of political goings-on throughout the ancient Near East. We were running out of time, but I insisted we go to the south tombs because I had to see an important tomb. In fact, the most important tomb on site, next to the royal tomb. The tomb of Ai.
We are.
Probably Nefertiti's father.
When was this?
He was an official. Oh man, we gotta wait for someone to drive all the way here.
Did you just film that? She doesn't have one?
I swear.
What if you do? What if you find out in 5 seconds that she does?
She doesn't.
I was a high official in the administration of Akhenaten. He was called, it's actually called here in the tomb, the overseer of horses, the fan bearer on the right hand of the king. And so he had a tomb that began to be prepared here, but he was never interred here because after Akhenaten died, the new administration of the king who succeeded him, his son Tutankhamun, everybody moved back to Waset, Thebes. And so I went back there, and he ended up becoming a pharaoh himself. And so ultimately, he was buried in the Valley of the Kings. But we can get a glimpse of what he was preparing for, his original tomb, by going in and checking it out. Here we are. We're in the entrance hall of the tomb, and what you're looking at here are the remnants of the art. You've got Akhenaten and his wife Nefertiti, and they're worshiping the Aten, and they're accompanied over here. You can't see their heads, but these are their 3 daughters. Here you have a hymn, and over here you've got what's left of Ai himself and his wife. And then over here on this side, this is a very famous text. It's the longest extant example of what we call the Great Hymn to the Aten. And there's a translation of this, but this is a famous hymn, may have been composed by Akhenaten himself, but you'll see it appearing from time to time in either shorter or longer versions in various tombs.
Below the hymn you can see Ai and his wife, with a perfume cone on her head, worshipping. The hall of the chapel was planned on an ambitious scale, but less than half of it was completed. Stairs lead down to the burial chamber. It was never finished.
Ooh. Oh, there's the bottom. Okay, that's the bottom. That's one of those Indiana Jones boulders.
I'm sure they're used to all kinds of tourists.
Yeah.
There's a really nice visitor center in Amarna too, but we didn't have enough time to check it out. We wanted to go over to the western side of the Nile to see the ruins of the ancient city of Khameneu, known to the Greeks as Hermopolis Magna. Unfortunately, when we got there, we were too late and the site was closed. Bummer. Ehab did his best to persuade the guards to let us in, but to no avail.
The people with Galabea.
Oh, okay.
You see the people with Galabea?
Yeah, so what's the difference between the people with Galabea and
The people with Galabea, because
في
they're
حد ورايا؟
from the city,
طيب
so
ماشي.
they used
السلام
to
عليكم.
work from grandparents, securing the area. So they give it like generations.
And what do they call those people
Security guard.
in Arabic?
Arabic, Haris.
Heres is singular or plural? If there's many of them, is it Heres?
Horros.
Horos. So one is Heres,
Haris,
two is Horos.
Horros.
Okay.
Harris is man?
No, it's the guys in the Galabea who've been letting us into the tombs with the key.
Yeah,
They're like the special caretakers. They're called Haros.
I see.
Heres.
ندخل.
We did, however, see another one of Akhenaten's boundary stelas. This is not commonly known, but after he originally laid out the boundaries of Akhetaten on the eastern side of the Nile, he later planned to expand the city, or perhaps I should say district, to the western side, and this stela was one of those marking the western limit.
Try to walk straight up the steps. Even finer than
Oh wow, there's all kinds of writing.
Yeah. It's not as damaged as what we visited earlier, so.
Yeah.
It's called Boundary Stela A, and you can see Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and their daughters standing before an offering table worshipping the Aten. Statues of the royal family stand alongside. The text of the stela is mainly concerned with fixing even more securely the limits of Akhetaten, and with dedicating all the enclosed land to the Aten. The drive back to Beni Suef took a few hours. We were famished when we got back, and so we stopped at a restaurant on the street to grab a bite. Ehab ordered us a selection of Egyptian street delicacies.
You can tell it's good because the grease is coming through, but it's like real paper, so it's like thick, like it's not like the McDonald's. Oh, this looks so look at that! Spirit finger, sir. Either I'm feeling better or I'm on drugs. Probably both. It's both.
Spicy? Not spicy.
I like spicy.
It was all fantastic, but I especially liked the liver sandwich. It was so good and cheap.
Oh, look at this, the liver.
Oh, I thought this was the liver.
Look at the liver. Liver.
Add to it tahini.
Okay.
Yeah. Put some tahini.
In our next episode, we will be heading over to the Fayum area to see two Middle Kingdom pyramids. The pyramid of Senusret II at El Lahoun, and the pyramid of Amenemhet III at Hawara, the site of the lost ancient labyrinth. Stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe.